Have you noticed how your life can look almost identical on the surface, yet feel fundamentally altered beneath it? You wake up. You move through routines you know by heart. People around you speak the same language, repeat the same concerns, follow the same rhythms, and still something inside you no longer responds. Old motivations feel distant. Old fears arise, but fail to take hold. Old explanations sound complete, and yet they no longer explain anything. We, the Pleiadians, recognize this moment with clarity. This is not confusion. It is not burnout, and it is not withdrawal from life. It is completion. The final phase of third density perception does not arrive with collapse or spectacle. It arrives when the internal system can no longer generate meaning. From urgency, separation, and reaction, you may notice that drama feels repetitive, that conflict feels unnecessary, that speed feels exhausting rather than stimulating. This is not because you care less. It is because your perception no longer organizes itself around the same reference points. Third density depends on constant interpretation. It requires narratives, positions, and the illusion of opposition to maintain coherence. When that framework completes, interpretation loses its function. You begin to see patterns instead of stories, structures instead of enemies, processes instead of personal battles. This shift does not remove you from life, it places you more accurately within it. You may feel a quiet disinterest in conversations that once absorbed you, a natural distance from arguments that once demanded resolution, not because you are detached, but because they no longer carry information. Before any external change becomes visible, this shift becomes felt. It appears as a subtle inner recognition that a certain way of perceiving the world has reached its limit, and when perception reaches that limit, it does not collapse, completes. What you are experiencing now is not anticipation of something coming. It is the acknowledgement that something fundamental has already ended, and once perception recognizes completion, there is no return to the previous configuration. This transmission begins here, not with prediction, not with urgency, but with recognition of what has already changed. Leaving third density does not mean leaving your life. It does not mean escaping the world, abandoning relationships, or rejecting the physical experience. Third density is not a location. It is a way perception organizes reality, a way built on separation, linear cause and effect, and the constant need to define meaning through contrast. In third density, understanding requires division. Things must be right or wrong, for or against, winners or losers. This structure once served a purpose. It allowed consciousness to individuate, to experience contrast, to recognize itself through opposition. But every structure has a limit. When perception matures, separation stops providing clarity and begins to create distortion. You may notice this as fatigue, not physical fatigue, but interpretive fatigue. You grow tired of explaining yourself, tired of categorizing people, tired of reducing complex realities into simple narratives. This is not disengagement. It is perception reorganizing toward coherence. Leaving third density means you no longer need polarity to understand truth. You begin to perceive systems instead of sides, processes instead of blame, energy instead of identity. Reality becomes quieter, not because less is happening, but because less needs interpretation. This is why many experience this phase. as strangely calm and unsettling at the same time. The mind looks for reference points that no longer function, and when reference points dissolve, the system must learn a new orientation. To consciously support this reorientation, write the following sentence in the comments. I allow perception to reorganize. This acknowledgement does not force the shift. It reduces resistance, so reorganization can complete naturally. Many shifts you have experienced before felt intense, dramatic, and temporary. They arrived as emotional waves. They disrupted routines. They demanded adaptation. And then, after some time, things returned to familiar patterns. This shift is different. It does not arrive as a wave. It arrives as a structural completion. Third density does not end because something new replaces it. It ends because it can no longer organize perception effectively. You may notice that fear no longer motivates in the same way, that urgency feels manufactured, that repetition becomes visible instead of convincing. This is not desensitization, it is saturation. When a perceptual framework reaches saturation, it cannot be revived by intensity. It simply stops functioning. This is why this shift feels final, not dramatic, not explosive, quiet. Once perception recognizes coherence beneath polarity, separation loses credibility. And when credibility is lost, the system does not fight to maintain it. It disengages. This disengagement does not feel like loss. It feels like relief. You stop trying to resolve contradictions that were never meant to be resolved. You stop investing energy in cycles that repeat without producing insight. The mind may still reach for old explanations, but they no longer land. They feel hollow. This is the signature of a completed cycle. Not confusion, not collapse, completion. Once perception reorganizes beyond polarity, it does not return to earlier modes. Not because return is forbidden, but because it is unnecessary. The system has learned what it needed to learn, and learning, once integrated, does not repeat itself. This is why the final shift out of third density does not announce itself. It completes quietly, through recognition rather than force. We, the Pleiadians, do not initiate this shift. We do not accelerate it. We do not decide its timing. This transition emerges from within human perception itself. Our role is stabilization. When a perceptual structure completes, the nervous system often interprets this as loss of orientation, not because something is wrong, but because familiar reference points dissolve. This can be experienced as subtle anxiety, restlessness, or a sense that meaning has gone quiet. We assist in regulating this phase, so perception can reorganize without being pulled back into urgency. Stabilization does not add information. It removes interference. We help the system slow. When it attempts to recreate polarity out of habit, we support the recalibration between awareness and embodiment, so the shift integrates physically, not only conceptually. This is why the transition can feel somatic. You may notice changes in rhythm, in tolerance for stimulation, in how quickly you withdraw from noise. These are not symptoms. They are adjustments. Our presence functions as a field of coherence that allows the nervous system to remain settled while perception completes its reorganization. This shift does not require effort. Effort belongs to third density. It requires allowance. To consciously anchor stabilization during this phase, write the following sentence in the comments. I remain stable as perception reorganizes. This acknowledgement does not move the process forward. It reduces internal resistance, so completion can occur without friction. When third density perception completes, daily life does not fracture. It reorders itself. Most of what changes does not appear as action, but as subtraction. You notice less inner friction, less need to respond, less impulse to correct, defend, or explain. You may find yourself leaving conversations earlier, not out of discomfort, but because nothing more needs to be added. Silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling accurate. This is not emotional withdrawal. It is perceptual efficiency. You engage only where engagement carries clarity. Relationships adjust quietly. Some connections deepen, without discussion or effort. Others fade, without confrontation, resentment, or story. This does not feel like abandonment. It feels like completion. You are no longer pulled to maintain dynamics that require constant interpretation. Reaction decreases, not because you suppress emotion, but because emotion no longer hijacks perception. You feel what you feel, and it passes, without creating identity. Urgency becomes transparent. You recognize when something is attempting to claim importance without providing meaning. Noise becomes visible as noise. Your attention stops scattering. Decision-making simplifies. Choices do not demand long internal debate. They present themselves through coherence. You sense alignment immediately, not as excitement, not as fear, as fit. This sensing does not argue with alternatives. It does not compare endlessly. It registers, and the system moves accordingly. You begin to conserve energy, not by trying, but because there is less leakage, less repetition, less mental rehearsal, less emotional recycling. Action becomes quieter and more precise. You do not act less. You act cleaner. This is how higher coherence inhabits ordinary life. Nothing announces it externally. From the outside, your life may look unchanged. From the inside, it no longer requires the same effort to remain stable. Once this reorganization settles, daily life does not invite you back into earlier modes of engagement. The system has learned a more efficient orientation, and efficiency, once integrated, does not reverse itself. The final shift out of third density perception does not complete through action, completes through recognition. Recognition that a previous way of organizing reality has already fulfilled its function. No announcement is required. No external confirmation is needed. Completion is internal. You may notice that your system no longer searches for explanations that once felt essential. Questions dissolve without needing answers. What once felt unfinished now feels neutral. This is not indifference. It is integration. Integration occurs when perception no longer fragments experience. In order to understand it, the old structure relied on separation, comparison, and constant interpretation. The new orientation does not replace it. It renders it unnecessary. This is why the shift feels irreversible. Once perception stabilizes around coherence, returning to fragmentation would require effort, and the regulated system does not choose effort. When clarity is available, attention no longer oscillates between past frameworks and future expectations. It settles where information is complete. This settling is quiet. There is no emotional peak, no sense of arrival, only the absence of tension that once required maintenance. We, the Pleiadians, remain present only until this stabilization is fully embodied. Our role concludes where self-regulation is restored, not because support is withdrawn, but because it is no longer relevant. Nothing has been added to you. Nothing has been removed. What has changed is the orientation through which experience is processed. Once this orientation integrates, it does not regress, not because regression is forbidden, but because it no longer provides clarity. This is the end of transition, not dramatic, not symbolic, complete. To consciously seal this integration, write the following sentence in the comments. The shift is integrated within me. This acknowledgement does not cause completion, confirms what has already settled. Remain present, remain regulated. The final shift continues because it no longer needs direction. We remain.